I'm Laura Rogers, and we are checking in with Ryland Barton, an editor for National Public Radio, and a lot to talk about, Ryland. And let's begin with news today from State Attorney General Russell Coleman saying that he is leading this multi-state coalition to support Louisiana's 10 Commandments law that a federal judge recently struck down. What can you tell us about this story?
I'm familiar with the post.
Yeah, so this law passed out of the Louisiana legislature earlier this year. It requires schools to display the 10 Commandments. It allows them to display the 10 Commandments and requiring them to display this context statement along with, which tries to show how this has been a fundamental part of American education since its founding. A lot of these are old historical documents or textbooks that also cited the 10 Commandments that, say had been adopted by a school board early in the 20th century or late in the 19th century. There's a lot of states that after Louisiana passed this law started to want to pass laws like this, some conservative legislators, because for a long time it had just been assumed that you couldn't pass a law like this. There's actually this landmark First Amendment case involving a Kentucky school that had put up the 10 Commandments, and I believe it was the late 1970s, early 1980s, and it was struck down and went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and that's been kind of the law of the land. But this law that passed out of the Louisiana legislature is kind of testing the waters on that. Obviously, as you said, the federal court has already struck it down, but there's this coalition of Republican attorneys general and others that are trying to support this and get it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is a more conservative Supreme Court than it has been in the past. And so some conservatives are hoping that this would be able to get through. And there's a lot of other legislatures, I would say Kentucky is probably one of them, that are poised to try and pass a similar law like this. And they're getting a lot of pressure from religious conservatives to do that.
It seems the perception is that their argument is, hey, these documents, these words are as historical as they are religious.
That's what the argument is. And again, part of doing that is trying to draw this connection where there have been examples of the 10 Commandments being posted in schools in the past or in textbooks that were used in schools in the past, and trying to draw that connection there, saying that there is some precedent for this. But it is also kind of trying to create a whole new order of things, a new precedent itself going forward that would allow states to do this.
And then moving now, you and I have talked quite a bit to Kentucky rolling out its medical cannabis program, and we are learning that a former high-ranking Democrat in the state house will be leading those efforts. Tell us about Rachel Roberts' new role.
Yeah, Rachel Roberts is a Northern Kentucky legislator. She did not seek re-election this year and will now be leading this thing, the Kentucky Cannabis Industry Association. Lots of industries have their own associations that go on and lobby the legislature, advocate for certain issues. She said that one thing that she really wanted to do through this is try and push to open up Kentucky's medical cannabis law, which will go into effect at the beginning of 2025. There's very limited conditions that cannabis can be prescribed for, including epilepsy, cancer, chronic nausea. It's a very limited set that people can get prescribed this. It's really the most conservative medical cannabis law in the country. And she and the medical cannabis industry that is starting to come online in Kentucky are worried that there really isn't going to be enough of a pool of patients to be able to support this industry. And it really would require an opening up of the conditions that cannabis can be prescribed for to get to that level. And that is also what a lot of conservatives who opposed the cannabis law in the first place were saying we're worried about. They wanted this to be a very limited, restricted law, and didn't want this to be the slippery slope, the beginning to something that would open up to a more expansive cannabis program. So that's what the new job is. We'll kind of see how this industry comes online after January 1st.
Yes, a lot to learn about how this is going to look once the new year rolls around. And we know those licenses are being announced and distributed, who's going to be able to be a dispensary and to cultivate medical cannabis. So a lot to learn about the industry as that unfolds. And then let's also talk, Ryland, about Leader Mitch McConnell. We know longstanding member, of course, in Congress representing the state of Kentucky, but there are some new calls questioning his health. He had that recent fall at the U.S. Capitol, and the Republican Party has changed a lot since President Trump has now become the helm and the face of the party. Let's talk about what we are hearing as far as maybe calls for Mitch McConnell to step down.
Yeah, that's very right. It is this combination of, there's these health factors that have been going on with Mitch McConnell, but also there's the Republican Party has changed dramatically over, say, the last 8 years, and McConnell really representing a likely outgoing version of the Republican Party, and he's become a little less popular among the Donald Trump wing of the Republican Party. But this comes at a time when he's 81 years old. He's stepping down from Senate Republican leadership. He's the longest serving Senate leader from either party. So he's already got his accolades here. But and in his speeches announcing his retirement from leadership, he really talked about how about those changes within the party and changes within governance of the United States. And I think one thing that he's trying to hold on to and trying to be a voice in is regarding the United States position on the world stage when it comes to foreign intervention, especially something like the United States support for Ukraine and as Russia's full-scale invasion of it continues on into its third year. There are a lot of Republicans, of those MAGA Republicans, that were calling for him to saying enough is enough after that fall, saying that this is now the time for him to step down, which would, of course, just trigger a special election in Kentucky. But he's remained determined so far to stay in. He hasn't said officially whether or not he will run for re-election in 2026 when he's up again. But he'll be 84 at that point. I think it's very likely that he wouldn't. And we're kind of waiting in Kentucky to see what that reshuffling of power will be. He's really been at the helm of Republicans here for so long, and we're going to kind of wait and see what the new version of that looks like going forward.
Very true. And all of this as we anticipate 2025. And Rylan, we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And many thanks to you for the insight and perspective that you bring to us every week here on Kentucky Edition. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura. Happy New Year to you too.